Single Dad Janitor helped an old man walking in the rain, but what followed the next morning nearly destroyed him. William Soares walked into work 7 minutes late, only to be humiliated in front of his coworkers and threatened with termination. He had no idea the stranger he rescued that night was standing in the hallway listening, and the moment Anthony M. Smith stepped into that meeting room, every cruel word his supervisor said would come back to destroy him. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. The storm was vicious that night, rain hammering the windshield of William Soares' old red pickup so hard the wipers could barely keep pace. He gripped the steering wheel with both hands, squinting through the downpour as lightning split the sky over Route 33. The science labs at Valley Crest Community College had taken until midnight to clean, and exhaustion pulled at his bones like weights. All he wanted was his bed and the quiet breathing of his daughter asleep in the next room. Then he saw him, an elderly man stumbling along the shoulder of the highway, drenched to the skin, clutching a leather briefcase like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His expensive suit was plastered to his frame, and he pressed one palm against his forehead as if fighting to stay conscious. No car, no shelter, just rain and darkness. William slowed the truck. It was nearly 1 a.m, the kind of hour that taught people to keep driving and mind their own business. But he saw the way the man swayed, how his legs threatened to buckle with each step. William pulled onto the shoulder, hazards blinking, and rolled down his window. Cold rain sprayed his face. "Hey, sir," he called over the storm. "You're gonna freeze out here. Get in, I'll take you wherever you need to go." The man turned, squinting through the rain. His face was pale, lined with exhaustion and something that looked like pain. He hesitated, studying William's weathered face, the faded work uniform, the genuine concern in his eyes. Then he nodded and stumbled toward the passenger door. William leaned across and pushed it open. The man climbed in slowly, water pooling immediately on the worn vinyl seat. His breath came in shallow gasps, his hands trembling as he set the briefcase on his lap. "Thank you," the man said quietly, his voice rough. "You may have just saved my life." William cranked the struggling heater and pulled back onto the empty highway. The warmth was barely there, but it was something. Rain drummed steadily on the roof, filling the silence between them. "Name's William," he said, eyes on the road. "William Soares." "Anthony," the man replied after a pause. "Just Anthony, no last name offered." William didn't push. He just drove, the headlights cutting weak paths through the storm as they made their way toward Bridgewater. Anthony's breathing slowly steadied, though he kept one hand pressed against his ribs like something hurt. "What happened out there?" William asked gently. "Car trouble. Miles from anywhere. Phone had no signal." Anthony's voice was tired but measured. "I thought I'd make it to the main road. I was wrong." William nodded. Storm caught a lot of people off guard tonight. When they reached his small apartment complex, a modest 2-story building with peeling paint and flickering porch lights, William helped Anthony inside. The place was cramped but clean. One couch, a tiny kitchen table, toys stacked neatly in the corner. Down the hall, his 10-year-old daughter Lila slept soundly, her nightlight casting a soft glow beneath her door. William handed Anthony a towel and switched on the radiator. It clicked and hummed reluctantly to life. He poured instant coffee into a chipped mug and pulled Lila's spare blanket from the closet, the one with cartoon stars she'd outgrown but refused to throw away. "Here," William said, draping it over Anthony's shoulders. "It's not much, but it's warm." Anthony accepted it silently, wrapping it around himself. His eyes moved slowly around the modest space. The second-hand furniture. The framed photo of William and Lila at a county fair. The stack of unpaid bills half hidden beneath a magazine. "You have a daughter," Anthony observed quietly. "Yeah, Lila, she's 10. William smiled despite his exhaustion. "She's my whole world." Anthony studied him for a long moment. "You're a good man, William Soares." William shrugged, embarrassed. "Just doing what anyone should. Most wouldn't have stopped, then most are wrong." William left before dawn, slipping out quietly to avoid waking Lila. When he returned after his morning errands, the couch was empty. The blanket was folded neatly on the armrest, and on the kitchen table sat a small white note written in elegant script. "Kindness is rare. You gave it freely. A. M. S. William smiled faintly, tucking the note into his wallet. He had no idea who Anthony really was. No clue that the soaked stranger was one of the wealthiest men in Virginia. He had no idea his life was about to change forever. The morning air was sharp and cold when William arrived at Valley Crest Community College. His boots squeaked on the polished hallway floors as he hurried toward the maintenance office, still damp from the lingering drizzle. He was 7 minutes late, unusual for him, but unavoidable after the storm and the detour to help Anthony. He hoped his supervisor, Gregory R. Maddox, would understand. He was wrong. Sares, Gregory's voice boomed across the hallway, loud enough to stop conversations and turn heads. "You think the rest of us operate on your schedule?" William froze. Several co-workers paused, mid-task, custodial carts stopping, mops lowering. Student workers near the vending machines turned to watch. "Mr. Maddox, I'm sorry. There was a storm, and save it." Gregory stalked toward him, his face flushed with anger. "I don't care if you were saving the world one stray old man at a time. You're late. That's all that matters." A few people exchanged uncomfortable glances. No one intervened. William kept his voice calm, respectful. "Sir, I helped someone in danger. An elderly man was stranded on the highway. I couldn't just do your job?" Gregory cut him off, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think good deeds pay your rent? Soars? You think kindness keeps this place running?" William's jaw tightened. He said nothing. Gregory turned to the small crowd that had gathered, raising his voice even louder. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. If anyone else wants to show up late playing hero, you can join Soars on the unemployment line." Silence. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to fade. Gregory stepped closer, jabbing a finger toward William's chest. "One more mistake, Soars. Just one. And you're done. Understand?" William nodded slowly, his hands clenched at his sides. "Yes, sir. Good. Now get to work." William turned and walked toward the supply closet, his face burning with humiliation. Behind him, whispers rippled through the hall. "That's harsh, man. Poor guy was just helping someone." But no one said it loud enough for Gregory to hear. What none of them knew, what William couldn't have known, was that somewhere else in that building, Anthony M. Smith had just arrived on campus, and he'd heard every word. But in that moment, William knew nothing of Anthony's presence. He only felt the weight of humiliation pressing down on his shoulders as he pushed his custodial cart toward the science wing, Gregory's threats still echoing in his ears. The morning had started badly and was getting worse. Valley Crest Community College buzzed with its usual Thursday morning chaos. Students hurried between classes, backpacks slung over shoulders, coffee cups in hand. Faculty members clustered near department offices, discussing lesson plans and upcoming exams. The smell of cafeteria, breakfast, eggs, toast, and burnt coffee drifted through the hallways. William had hoped to slip in quietly, check his assignment sheet, and disappear into his work routine. But Gregory had been waiting, watching the entrance like a hawk stalking prey. Now, as William moved through the corridor, he felt dozens of eyes following him. His co-workers, Maria from housekeeping, old Jerome who'd worked maintenance for 20 years, even the young student assistant Carlos, all looked away when his gaze met theirs. They pitied him, but pity didn't pay bills. William reached the supply closet and began loading his cart with cleaning solution, rags, and a fresh mop head. His hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over while his mind spiraled with worry. 7 minutes. That's all it had been. 7 minutes that might cost him everything. He thought about Lila waking up this morning, braiding her own hair because he'd left early, eating cereal alone at their small kitchen table. He thought about her school supply list he'd been saving for, the winter coat she'd need in a few months, the electricity bill already 2 weeks overdue. This job wasn't glamorous. It didn't pay well. But it was steady. It was reliable. It kept food on the table and a roof over their heads, and Gregory knew that. Which made his threat even crueler. "Hey, man." Jerome appeared beside him, his weathered face creased with concern. "Don't let Gregory get to you. We all know you're solid." William forced a small smile. "Thanks, Jerome. For what it's worth, I would have stopped too. Anyone with a heart would have." William nodded, but the words felt hollow. Heart didn't matter when rent was due. He pushed his cart toward the science labs, the wheels squeaking rhythmically against the tile floor. Students passed by without seeing him. Just another janitor, another invisible worker keeping their world clean. That's what he'd always been here. Invisible, replaceable. And now, one act of kindness might make him unemployed too. William entered Lab 4 and began wiping down lab tables, his movements mechanical, his thoughts dark. He had no idea that down the hall, in the administrative wing, Anthony M. Smith was asking very specific questions about a janitor named William Soares. Anthony M. Smith arrived at Valley Crest Community College just after 10 o'clock, stepping out of a black Mercedes sedan that gleamed even under the overcast sky. Gone was the drenched, stumbling figure from the storm. In his place stood a man transformed. Tailored charcoal suit, polished leather shoes, silver hair perfectly combed back. He moved with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to boardrooms and power. The moment he entered the main administrative building, whispers began. Is that Anthony Smith? Oh my God. The donor? The one funding the new library wing? He owns Smith Tech Manufacturing. My cousin works at his plant in Pennsylvania. Staff members straightened their postures as he passed. A secretary nervously smoothed her blouse. The assistant dean rushed forward, hand extended, smile wide and practiced. Mr. Smith, we weren't expecting you until next week. Change of plans, Anthony replied smoothly, shaking her hand with polite brevity. I wanted to see the campus again. Get a feel for where our investment is going. Of course. Let me arrange a formal tour. That won't be necessary. His tone was kind but firm. I prefer to observe quietly. You understand. She nodded, stepping back, unsure whether to feel honored or dismissed. Anthony moved through the hallways with deliberate slowness, his sharp eyes taking in everything. The scuffed linoleum floors, the outdated bulletin boards, the tired faces of overworked staff. He paused occasionally, as if admiring architecture, but really he was listening for a voice he'd recognize. He found it near the maintenance office. Soares better get his act together, Gregory's voice carried from around the corner, loud and dismissive. I don't care what sob story he's peddling. Late is late. Anthony stopped, positioning himself just out of sight. Come on, Gregory. Another voice replied, Maria, from housekeeping. Rescued? Gregory laughed harshly. He probably made that up. Soares is lazy, always looking for excuses. And he's replaceable. Plenty of people need jobs. Anthony's expression shifted. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His eyes, warm moments before, turned cold, analytical. He studied the wall between them, as if he could see through it to measure the man speaking. You're too soft, Maria, Gregory continued. This place needs discipline, not charity cases. Footsteps approached from the opposite hallway. Anthony glanced over and saw him. William Soares, pushing a custodial cart, shoulders slightly hunched, face drawn with exhaustion and worry. His uniform was clean but worn. His movements were careful, practiced, invisible. He hadn't noticed Anthony yet. William passed the maintenance office, and Gregory's voice cut out sharply. Soares, those bathrooms in the east wing better be spotless by noon. You hear me? Yes, sir, William replied quietly, not stopping, not making eye contact. Anthony watched the exchange with absolute stillness. He saw the way William held himself, proud despite the humiliation, dignified despite the disrespect. The same man who'd offered warmth and safety without hesitation, now being treated like he was worthless. William had saved his life last night. And he'd done it without knowing who Anthony was, without expecting reward or recognition. He'd done it simply because it was right. Anthony's cold expression hardened into something resolute. Gregory Maddox had no idea what was coming. The staff briefing was called for 11 o'clock sharp in the maintenance break room. William arrived with the others, sensing something was wrong by the way Gregory stood at the front, arms crossed, expression triumphant. Dean Patricia Holbrook sat in the corner, looking uncomfortable. Maria, Jerome, and 6 other maintenance workers filled the cramped space, exchanging nervous glances. Let's make this quick, Gregory began, his voice clipped. We've had ongoing issues with punctuality and professional conduct. This morning's incident made it clear we need to set standards. William's stomach dropped. William Soares. Gregory turned toward him, eyes gleaming. You were 7 minutes late today. You disrupted morning operations, and frankly, your excuses have become a pattern. Mr. Maddox, I explained. I'm not interested in explanations. Gregory held out his hand. Your ID badge. Effective immediately. Your employment is terminated. The room went silent. Maria gasped softly. Jerome's jaw clenched. William stood slowly, his face pale but composed. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the lanyard around his neck, fingers fumbling with the clip. This was it. The end of stability. The end of providing for Lila. The door opened. Every head turned. Anthony M. Smith stepped into the room, his presence filling the cramped space instantly. His polished shoes clicked against the linoleum. His expression was unreadable. Gregory's face lit up. He straightened immediately, smoothing his shirt, his voice shifting to syrupy professionalism. Mr. Smith, what an honor. I was just handling some administrative matters. Maintaining our high standards, you know. Anthony said nothing. His eyes moved slowly across the room, landing on William, who stood frozen with his badge half removed. Please, Gregory continued, gesturing dismissively toward William. Don't let this interrupt your visit. Just removing an employee who doesn't meet our leaf. Stop. Anthony's voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. Gregory blinked. Sir? Anthony turned to face him fully. The man you're firing. What's his name? Soares. William Soares. He was late this morning, and William Soares, Anthony repeated slowly. He turned to William. Is that correct? William nodded, confused. Yes, sir. The same William Soares who stopped on Route 33 last night during a thunderstorm? Anthony's voice grew stronger. The man who found me collapsed on the highway, brought me to safety, gave me shelter, warmth, and asked for nothing in return? The room erupted in shocked whispers. Gregory's confident smile faltered. I don't understand. You're firing the man who saved my life. Anthony's tone was ice. The man who risked being late, risked this exact consequence because he chose humanity over punctuality. Dean Holbrook stood abruptly. Mr. Smith, I had no idea. Anthony raised a hand. Let me be clear about who I am. He turned to address the entire room. My name is Anthony Michael Smith. I own Smith Tech Manufacturing, which operates 17 facilities across 3 states. I am also the largest private donor to this institution, funding your new library wing, your scholarship programs, and significant portions of your operational budget. Dead silence. And last night, Anthony continued, his gaze returning to William. This man saved my life without knowing any of that. He helped me because it was right. Gregory's face drained of color. William Soares is reinstated immediately, Anthony declared. Furthermore, he is promoted to acting maintenance lead. Effective today. Gasps rippled through the room. William stared, unable to speak. Gregory stammered. But sir, you were only demonstrating why this department needs new leadership. Anthony's expression was cold. We'll discuss your future, separately. William's hand slowly released his badge, letting it fall back against his chest. He was still standing, still employed, still able to provide for his daughter. Gregory Maddox left the briefing room with his jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached, humiliated, stripped of authority, reduced to nothing in front of the staff he'd commanded for 6 years. All because of William Soares. That night, alone in his apartment, Gregory replayed the scene over and over. Anthony Smith's cold dismissal. The staff's shocked whispers. William's stunned, grateful face as he accepted a promotion Gregory believed should never have happened. Acting maintenance lead, Gregory muttered bitterly, downing his 3rd whiskey. He's a nobody. A janitor playing hero, but Anthony Smith hadn't seen it that way. And now Gregory's authority was shattered, his reputation damaged, his future uncertain. Someone had to pay for that. It started small. 3 days after the confrontation, William arrived for his morning shift to find the chemical storage closet in disarray. Cleaning solution bottles had been moved, labels facing the wrong direction. 2 containers of industrial degreaser sat where the floor polish should be. That's weird, William murmured. reorganizing them carefully. Mixing those chemicals could be dangerous. He made a mental note to remind staff about proper storage procedures. 2 days later, Jerome discovered a power cord on one of the floor buffers had been partially cut through. The copper wires exposed just enough to be hazardous, but not obviously severed. "Lucky I checked before plugging it in," Jerome said, showing William the frayed cord. "Could have been bad." William examined it closely. The cut was too clean, too deliberate. This wasn't wear and tear. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" William hesitated. "I don't know. Let's just replace it and keep our eyes open." But the incidents continued. A week into William's new role, tools began disappearing from the maintenance shop. A drill went missing overnight. The next day, a set of wrenches vanished. They'd reappear later in strange places, the drill shoved behind cleaning supplies, the wrenches scattered in the wrong toolbox. Work orders started getting lost. William would assign tasks in the morning, only to find the paperwork missing by afternoon, leaving jobs incomplete and administrators frustrated. Maria pulled William aside one morning, her voice low. "Someone's messing with you, William. This isn't coincidence." "I know." William's jaw tightened. "But I can't accuse anyone without proof." That's exactly what Gregory would want. Me looking paranoid and incompetent. "You think it's him? Who else would it be?" Gregory moved through the building after hours like a ghost, his keycard granting access to areas most staff never saw. He knew the security camera blind spots, knew which doors were monitored and which weren't. In the darkness of the utility room, he carefully loosened the connections on the HVAC control panel, just enough to cause intermittent failures. Nothing catastrophic, nothing traceable, just enough to make William's department look incompetent. He smiled in the darkness. Let Anthony Smith protect his precious hero now. Meanwhile, 300 miles away in his Pennsylvania office, Anthony Smith listened to his assistant's weekly report on the Valley Crest donation project. "And the maintenance department?" Anthony asked casually. "Some minor issues, sir. Equipment malfunctions, missing tools. Nothing major, but unusual given Mr. Soar's reputation for organization." Anthony's eyes narrowed slightly. "Unusual how?" "Just statistically improbable. Multiple small failures in rapid succession." Anthony was silent for a long moment. Then, "I want security camera footage from the maintenance areas for the past 2 weeks. All of it." "Sir? Someone's playing games," Anthony said quietly. "And I intend to find out who." The HVAC system in Harrison Hall failed on a Tuesday morning during midterms. Within an hour, temperatures in 8 classrooms plummeted to 53 degrees. Students sat shivering through exams, wrapped in coats and scarves. Faculty complained. The dean's office received a flood of angry calls from parents. William was summoned immediately. He stood in the mechanical room, staring at the control panel in disbelief. Multiple connections had come loose, wires disconnected, switches flipped to the wrong positions. It looked like catastrophic negligence. "How does this happen, Soars?" Dean Holbrook's voice was tight with frustration behind him. "This system was just inspected last month." "I don't know, ma'am." William's hands trembled as he reconnected the wiring. "These connections don't just come loose on their own. Someone would have had to." "Had to what? Sabotage it?" She sighed heavily. "I understand you've been under pressure with your new responsibilities, but we can't have failures like this." "Dean Holbrook, I inspected this panel myself 3 days ago. Everything was secure. I documented it." William pulled out his phone. She studied the images, her expression softening slightly. "Then how do you explain this?" "I can't." His voice cracked with frustration. "Not yet." By afternoon, rumors spread across campus like wildfire. "Did you hear the new maintenance guy screwed up the heating system? My professor said they promoted someone who wasn't ready. Probably why they got rid of Maddox. Whole departments falling apart." William heard the whispers as he walked through the student center, saw the looks, felt the judgment. That evening, Lila sat at their kitchen table, pushing food around her plate without eating. "Lila, what's wrong?" William asked gently. She looked up, her 10-year-old eyes glistening with tears. "Kids at school were talking. They said you're gonna get fired. They said we're gonna lose our apartment." William's heart shattered. He moved around the table and knelt beside her chair, taking her small hands in his. "Hey, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "We're not losing anything, I promise. Someone's trying to make me look bad at work, but the truth always comes out. You believe me?" She nodded. But the fear didn't leave her face. That night, after Lila fell asleep, William sat alone in the dark living room and wept. Silent tears of exhaustion, frustration, and fear. He'd survived poverty, single parenthood, and endless struggle. But this felt different. This felt targeted, and he had no idea how to fight an invisible enemy. 3 states away, Anthony Smith reviewed the maintenance logs his assistant had obtained through official channels. Something was wrong. The entries showed William signing off on the HVAC inspection the day before the failure. But the handwriting looked subtly different. The timestamp was slightly off from William's usual pattern. Anthony reached for his phone and dialed a number he rarely used. "Daniel? I need someone discreet. Former law enforcement. Experience with corporate investigations." He paused. "Yes. Immediately. And tell him I want hidden surveillance installed. I need to know who's moving through those maintenance areas after hours." "Understood, Mr. Smith. I'll have someone there by tomorrow." Anthony hung up and stared at the falsified logs on his desk. Someone was systematically destroying William Soares. And Anthony M. Smith was about to find out exactly who. 7 days after the cameras were installed, Anthony received the call. "Mr. Smith, you need to see this." Daniel Warren, the private investigator, spoke with the careful precision of someone delivering damning evidence. "I have everything. Time-stamped, high definition, irrefutable. Show me." The dean's conference room was silent, except for the hum of the laptop as the investigator queued up the footage. Anthony sat on one side of the table, his expression carved from stone. Dean Holbrook sat across from him, her face pale with apprehension. "This is from 6 nights ago," Warren said, clicking play. 2:47 a.m. The screen showed the maintenance workshop in grainy night vision green. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a figure entered from the left, Gregory Maddox, wearing street clothes, moving with casual confidence. He walked directly to William's toolbox and removed a cordless drill, slipping it into a bag. Then he took a set of wrenches and shoved them behind a stack of cleaning supplies on the opposite shelf. Dean Holbrook leaned forward, her hand covering her mouth. "Next clip," Warren continued. 3 nights ago. 11:23 p.m. This footage showed the mechanical room in Harrison Hall. Gregory entered, looked directly at the HVAC control panel, and systematically disconnected wiring. His movements were deliberate, methodical. When he finished, he actually smiled, a cold, satisfied expression. Anthony's jaw tightened. "And this," Warren said quietly, "is from yesterday afternoon." The timestamp showed 4:47 p.m., after most staff had left. Gregory sat at William's desk in the maintenance office, a work log open in front of him. He carefully traced William's signature from an earlier entry, then forged it onto a new inspection report, one that would make William appear to have signed off on equipment he'd never actually checked. Gregory's smirk was clearly visible as he closed the log and placed it back on the shelf. "There's more," Warren added. 14 instances over 3 weeks. Tampering, theft, forgery, and deliberate property damage. Anthony stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Call a mandatory staff meeting, now. Everyone in the maintenance department. Campus security, and contact the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office. I want officers present." Dean Holbrook nodded, already reaching for her phone. An hour later, the maintenance break room was packed. William stood near the back, confused by the sudden summons. Maria, Jerome, and the others whispered nervously. Gregory leaned against the wall, arms crossed, looking annoyed but not particularly concerned. Dean Holbrook entered, followed by Anthony, the investigator, 2 campus security officers, and 2 county sheriff's deputies in uniform. Gregory's posture shifted slightly. "We've called you here regarding a serious matter," Dean Holbrook began, her voice steady but strained. "Over the past 3 weeks, there have been multiple incidents of equipment tampering, theft, and document forgery. We now have conclusive evidence identifying the perpetrator." She nodded to Warren, who set up the laptop and projector. The first video began playing on the wall. Gregory's face appeared on screen, stealing tools from William's station. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. William stared at the footage, his expression shifting from confusion to stunned realization. The second clip played, Gregory sabotaging the HVAC panel. Smiling, Maria gasped audibly. Jerome shook his head in disgust. The third clip showed the forgery, Gregory's hand carefully tracing William's signature. No. Gregory pushed off the wall, his voice rising. This is doctored. This is time-stamped, authenticated, and legally admissible, Warren interrupted calmly. 14 separate incidents. All captured in full. The sheriff's deputies moved forward. Gregory Maddox, one officer said, you're under arrest for criminal property damage, theft, forgery, and workplace interference. Gregory's face went from red to white. You can't. This is insane. I was trying to expose his incompetence. You were committing crimes. Anthony's voice cut through the room like a blade. And framing an innocent man. The deputies cuffed Gregory as he sputtered protests. The room watched in absolute silence as he was escorted out, still pleading, still blaming. The door closed behind him. William stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. Finally vindicated. After the others filed out, still whispering in shock, Anthony asked William to stay behind. William stood near the doorway, overwhelmed, unable to fully process what had just happened. 3 weeks of sabotage, rumors, and fear, all exposed in minutes. William. Anthony's voice was gentle. Sit down, please. William lowered himself into a chair, his legs suddenly unsteady. Dean Holbrook remained as well, sitting across from them with a manila folder in her hands. Anthony pulled a chair close and sat facing him directly. I owe you more than gratitude for what you did that night on Route 33. You saved my life. But more than that, you showed me who you are, someone who helps without expecting anything in return, someone with integrity. William's throat tightened. I was just doing what was right. Exactly. Anthony leaned forward. Which is why I'm about to make you an offer. And I want you to consider it carefully. Dean Holbrook opened the folder and slid 3 documents across the table. First, Anthony continued, I'm offering you the permanent position of facilities manager for the entire Valley Crest campus. Full benefits, salary increase of 40% over your current pay, and a contract that protects you from the kind of abuse Gregory subjected you to. William stared at the contract, his hands trembling as he picked it up. The salary listed made his breath catch more money than he'd ever earned in his life. Second, Anthony said, I'm funding your enrollment in a fully accredited HVAC certification program through Blue Ridge Technical College. Tuition, books, materials, everything covered. You'll attend classes on campus time, with full pay. William's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Smith, And third, Anthony's voice softened, I'm establishing an education trust fund for Lila. It will cover her college tuition, room and board, and educational expenses through a 4-year degree at any accredited institution she chooses. William broke. Deep, shuddering sobs he couldn't contain. Years of struggle, fear, and exhaustion poured out of him in waves. Anthony placed a steady hand on his shoulder. You gave me shelter when I had nothing. Now let me give your daughter a future. That afternoon, William left work early for the first time in years. He drove to Bridgewater Elementary and waited outside Lila's classroom. His face still blotchy from crying, but his heart lighter than it had been in a decade. When the bell rang, Lila emerged with her backpack, surprised to see him. Dad? What's wrong? He knelt down and pulled her into a tight hug. Nothing's wrong, Lila. Everything's right. Everything's finally right. She pulled back, searching his face. You're not fired? No. He laughed through fresh tears. I got promoted. And you? His voice cracked. You're going to college, Lila. Full scholarship. Any school you want. Her eyes went wide. Then she burst into tears, throwing her arms around his neck. They stood there in the school hallway, holding each other, crying together. Not from fear this time, but from overwhelming relief and joy. The next morning, William's co-workers gathered around him before the shift began. Maria hugged him first. I'm so sorry, William. I should have spoken up louder. Jerome clasped his shoulder. You deserved better from us. We failed you. William shook his head. You didn't fail me. The system did. But it's fixed now. To the best facilities manager Valley Crest ever had, Maria said, raising her coffee cup. The others joined in, smiling genuine smiles. William looked around at their faces and felt something he hadn't felt in years, belonging. 4 months later, William drove to the Rockingham County Community Service Center on a crisp Saturday morning. He'd heard through the courthouse grapevine that Gregory Maddox was completing his mandatory service hours there, working in the facilities maintenance department under supervision. William parked his truck, no longer the battered red pickup, but a newer model Anthony had helped him finance, and walked through the entrance carrying a sealed manila envelope. He found Gregory in the equipment storage room, organizing cleaning supplies. Gregory's jumpsuit was marked with the county logo. His face had thinned, aged. He looked up when William entered, and his entire body went rigid. Sores. His voice was flat, defensive. Come to gloat? William shook his head slowly. No. I came to give you something. He extended the envelope. Gregory stared at it like it might explode. What is it? A lawsuit? Open it. Gregory took it hesitantly, tearing the seal with shaking hands. Inside were 3 stapled documents and a handwritten note on Valley Crest letterhead. He scanned the first page. An application for the Virginia Workforce Reintegration Program, a state-funded initiative that helped people with criminal records find stable employment after serving their sentences. The second page was a letter of recommendation. From William. Gregory's eyes widened. You wrote this? Read the note, William said quietly. Gregory unfolded the handwritten paper, his hands trembling. Gregory, I'm not going to pretend what you did didn't hurt. It nearly destroyed my life and my daughter's future. But I also know what desperation feels like. I know what it's like to be humiliated and afraid. Everyone needs a second chance. I got mine because someone chose mercy over judgment. Now I'm choosing the same. The program can help you rebuild. The recommendation will give you a fair shot. What you do with it is up to you. William Soares. Gregory stared at the note for a long moment, his jaw working silently. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. Why? His voice cracked. After everything I did to you, because holding on to bitterness would only poison me, William said simply. You can't undo what happened, but you can choose what comes next. That's more than enough. Gregory opened his mouth, closed it, then whispered, Thank you. William nodded once and turned toward the door. As he reached it, Gregory called out, Soares, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. William paused, his hand on the doorframe. He didn't turn around, but his voice was steady. I know you are. That's why I came. He walked out into the sunlight, leaving the envelope and its second chance behind. 6 months later, William and Lila drove down Route 33 on a spring evening. The same stretch of highway where everything had changed. But now, the sky was clear, painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun set over the Blue Ridge Mountains. Lila sat in the passenger seat, practicing her Spanish vocabulary for the immersion program she'd be attending that summer. Same program Anthony had funded as part of her education trust. Dad, how do you say thank you for believing in me? She asked. William smiled. Gracias por creer en mí. She repeated it carefully, then looked out the window at the passing landscape. This is where you found Mr. Smith, right? Right about here. Yeah, crazy how one night changed everything. William glanced at her, his heart full. Not just one night, Lila. One choice. To stop when I could have kept driving. That's what changed everything. She reached over and squeezed his hand. As they drove through the twilight toward home, toward the comfortable apartment, they no longer feared losing. Toward the future that was finally secure, William thought about the note he'd left for Gregory. About second chances and choosing grace. He'd been given mercy when he needed it most. And he'd learned that the truest measure of character wasn't how you treated those who could help you. It was how you treated those who couldn't.